Uh, Good evening to all of you. Today's GST lecture number
28. Today's GST
lecture number 28, and we are on the verge of completion of GST and tax payment. Yes. Uh, what is the due date of deposit of GST? In fact, the due date of deposit of GST is in fact given here. Period prescribed is liable to date of period prescribed. ठीक है which is the same date of the returns, the monthly returns. It is the same date. Anyhow, we'll do that also. Let's proceed with first section of tax payment, chapter number 15. Payment of tax, interest, penalty, other amounts. Credit to electronic cash ledger. As you know, our output GST is assumed to be 1 lakh. We claim input GST as credit 80,000, and then guys GST payable is 20,000. This output GST is reflected in the electronic liability register. Electronic liability register. This input GST is reflected in the electronic. These are all online. That's why they are known as electronic credit ledger. Now, I don't know why they have known it as register and this is a ledger. Strange. They should have known it as electronic liability ledger. But this is register, this is ledger. I don't know why. Crazy. And this GST payable of 20,000 has to be discharged by payment of cash, and that cash has to be deposited in the electronic cash ledger. उसको भी लेजर ही लिख देते यार, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर, उसको भी इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी लेजर कह लेते. So electronic liability register discloses your output liability. Electronic credit ledger contains your credit of the input taxes, and then the payment has to be done by debit to the electronic cash ledger. So the liability register's liability has to be met by debiting either the electronic credit ledger or electronic cash ledger. Now, how will you deposit money in the electronic cash ledger? For example, 20,000 in this case. Every deposit made towards tax, interest, penalty, fees, any other amount. These are minor heads. These are minor heads. The major heads will be like this: IGST, CGST, SGST, oblique UTGST, and GST compensation cess. And it is like this: tax, this is one head; interest, penalty, fees, other amount. So you need to deposit IGST. For example, your 20,000 is and IGST. Then you deposit IGST tax 20,000 here. So once you deposit, then you need to deposit in this head. Yes, these are the 5 minor heads: tax, interest, penalty, fees, other amount. And these are your major heads. Acha, this is 10,000 CG and 10,000 SG. Then you deposit under CG 10,000 here or 10,000 here. Acha, this 20,000 has to be deposited along with interest. Yes, interest under the IGST Act. Then this is 500 rupees liability is there. So you deposit 500 here. So along with each and every head you have to fill up, and you need to deposit tax. So it is just not saying put in the electronic cash ledger. This will not help. In the electronic cash ledger, there are 5 minor heads: tax, interest, penalty, fees, other amount, and your 4 or 5, you can say, major heads: IGST, CGST, SGST, UTGST, and GST compensation cess. So you need to know in which block you need to deposit the cash. And how will you deposit? in this blocks by using credit card, debit card, RTGS, NEFT or other modes as may be prescribed, as prescribed by the government. Yes, so you have to deposit them online and credit to the electronic cash ledger and has to be maintained in the manner as prescribed. So guys, once we need funding in the electronic cash ledger because our credit ledger is less, and even if you have credit, you might need money in the cash ledger because the credit ledger, yes guys, can only be used. The credit ledger, where is credit ledger? The credit ledger can only be used for making payment of output tax. So for interest outflows, for penalties, you cannot debit electronic credit ledger. For example, this 200 plus 200, 20,000 plus 200 is your output tax. This 20,000 you can set off against electronic credit ledger. But my dear friends, this 200 rupees has to be from the cash ledger. Even if you have a credit ledger balance, you cannot pay off this 200 rupees interest. So guys, cash ledger can be used for payment of the taxes which are showing in the electronic liability register. Again, the electronic liability register will show like this: tax, interest, penalty, fees amount, IGST. So similarly, if you have a output tax liability, so guys, output tax liability, yes, so liability is divided in two parts. Liability is divided in two parts. Is it an output GST liability? Yes. Or it is a liability of interest, penalty, fees or other amount. Yes, this liability can be set off either from, yes my dear friends, electronic credit ledger, or it can be set off from electronic cash ledger. But guys, this can only be set off from electronic cash ledger. Yes, so you need money in the cash ledger to pay off your interest, penalties, fees and other amount. Please write it down. So your liability, your output GST liability can be set off either from the electronic credit ledger, electronic cash ledger. Now, there are rules. Baba re Baba. There are rules for setting off electronic credit ledger. There are rules which are given in section 49, 49A, 49B, Rule 88A, which we have done. IGST can be set off from the IGST and the remaining credit has to be used from the CGST, from the CGST remaining from IGST. But are there any specific rules for using electronic cash ledger? For example, just to give you an example, there the set of procedure we know, which credit has to be used first. For example, I give you an example. My output GST, yeah, my liability. This is an example. My liability is as follows: IGST 10,000, CGST 5,000, SGST 5,000, and GST compensation cess is 2,000. There is no interest which I am liable to pay. No, I have no ITC, but I have e-cash ledger, electronic cash ledger balances, for which in the cash ledger I should be having 10,000 GST, 5,000 CG, 5,000 SG, 2,000, but the balances are like this: IGST 20,000 and IGST 25,000, 20,000. Hanji. Let's not make it 20, let's make it 18,000, and GST compensation says I have got only 1,500 rupees. Now my point is, how can I set off the e-cash ledger set off? How can I do that? If I had the ITC, I would have used the ITC. But Now the cash ledger has IGST of 18,000, GST compensation cess of 1500. How will I set off my liability?
I hope you have understood the problem. First, tell me that.
Sir, here at the time of deposit of cash online, we defined that towards IGST it is 18,000, towards GST compensation says it is
But I deposit more.
I did a wrong calculation. So by mistake, I had more
For the IGs. Optimally, I
should
should
have when I was submitting money in the cash ledger online. I was transferring, है ना जैसे I should have transferred 10 to IG, CG5, SG5 in GST compensation 2. But by mistake, what I did was 18,000 deposit in the IGST and the GST I deposited 1500. Or you can make it like this: 1800 and 2000 is here. Chalo, let's 20,000 I've totally deposited, but I wrongly deposited. What should
do now to do the set off. नहीं यहाँ
पर कोई रूल्स नहीं है अब. पहले देयर वर द रूल्स कि भाई आईजीएसटी है ना. सुनो मेरी बात. अर्लियर द लॉ सेड 18,000 में 10,000 यूज यहां करना, नो नीड टू कॉपी, एंड द बैलेंस 8,000 अप्लाई फॉर रिफंड. अप्लाई फॉर रिफंड ऑफ 8,000. You need to deposit more cash in CGST of 5,000, more CGST cash of 5,000 here. Yes, earlier that was the option. But now what you can do is inter and intra head adjustments are also there. Maybe this 2,000, yes, is lying in your interest. Interest 2,000 is lying in your interest. Now what you can do is you can 18,000 hai, you set off 10,000 and transfer IGST of 8,000 to the CGST head of the eCash ledger. So you can use 5,000 here. You transfer it first in the head and then use it for debiting purposes. And 3,000 you can use it here. 2,000 GST cess is there. You set off here. And the interest of 2,000 you transfer it to SGST. I think, and here we have transferred. I just show it how we have transferred. So you transferred this. Just a second, guys. Let me remove this refund point. तो मैं समझाना ये चाह रहा हूँ कि हमने IGST में 10 रखा और उसको ट्रांसफर टू CGST head. CGST, how much? 5,000. And you can make your adjustments yourself and transfer to SGST 3,000. So you can change the heads yourself. Otherwise, pehle to you have to apply for the refund and your money was blocked. Baba, but this is my funds. I could use it anyway. This is just like I have one bank account, another bank account I also have. I can transfer my funds between various bank accounts. Nobody can stop me. But earlier, no, if you have extra funds in one account, you have to withdraw them. You cannot transfer it. Then you have to add more funds in the other account. But no more all intra and inter head, major and minor head, intra adjustments you can do. So what I have done is, I have transferred IGST, debit by the IGST in the eCash ledger. It is liability is nil. Now this 2,000 GST compensation says I set it from here. The liability is nil. 5,000 I transferred, the liability is nil. And this interest I transferred 2,000 here. So I transferred it to SGST under the eCash ledger. It is also nil. So what you can write is there is no now in any, what should I write? Intra and inter head adjustments between major and minor heads allowed. Between major and minor heads allowed. So interest amount can be transferred to the penalty amount. Penalty amount can be transferred to the tax amount. Tax amount between CG, SG, IG you can transfer. There are no rules because this is hard cash. So I had 5 wallets. One wallet had excess balance. I can transfer. Now even RBI has done that. from Paytm wallet to MobiKwik wallet, now you will be able to transfer your funds. This is my cash. Why you are stopping me? So earlier it was a big problematic area. In fact, last year the amendments came, and now you can do inter any kind of adjustment in the cash ledger without asking for refund. Otherwise, earlier it was very cumbersome process. Have you understood it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Chaliye, let's proceed.
So we have done subsection 1. Subsection 2 says credit to the electronic credit. The input tax credit self-assessed in the return when you filed your GSTR 3B, and the other person also files GSTR 1. All these things get auto-populated, shall be credited to electronic credit ledger, and you obviously purchase and put it in the invoices in accordance with section 41(3) as may be maintained. So your input tax credit will be reflected in the electronic credit ledger. Utilization of the cash ledger. The amount available in the electronic cash ledger may be used for making any payment of tax. Any tax means GST, CG, SG, interest, penalty, fees, any other amount payable under the provision as may be prescribed. These are the rules. We'll see to it. Utilization of electronic credit ledger. The amount available in the electronic credit ledger may be used for making any payment towards output tax. And that is again as per the section 49, 49A, 49B, rule 88A. We have done that. Priority of set off. Again, priority of set off, the crux we have told you, and this is section 49. We have done that. Yes. Refund. The balance in the electronic cash ledger, that is your cash, or electronic credit ledger, yes, after payment of taxes, interest, penalty, fees, or any other amount may be refunded in accordance with the provision of 54. Today we'll do the chapter of refund. So how they are refunded? This refund is easy because this is your cash. This is my wallet. But credit ledger refund, it has some restrictions obviously. So electronic liability register क्या है? All liabilities of a taxable person, whether it is of tax, interest, penalty, fees, etc., shall be maintained in electronic liability register. Electronic liability register, electronic credit ledger, electronic liability register as prescribed. Adjustment of tax. Every taxable person shall discharge his tax and other dues under this act in the following order: self-assessed tax and other dues relating to the returns of previous tax period. If some outstanding is there, so whenever you pay, it will be used for discharging your old liability. Then the taxes and dues of the current tax period. Yes. So if the past amount is pending, we cannot say that you have paid the tax and current tax you have paid, past remains. No. For example, your fees is pending of CS executive. Yes, guys, 5,000 rupees. And your CS professional fees is pending 6,000 rupees. You make a payment of 4,000 rupees. So that will be accounted not for CS professional, that will be accounted for CS executive. So similarly, if your taxes are outstanding, whatever you pay, yes, first will be assessed for the previous tax period, then the current outstanding, and then yes, any other amount payable under this act or rules, including demand under 7374. So taxes and other dues of the current period, previous period, taxes and dues of the current period. This is priority of set off, just like they had a priority of set off under the Income Tax Act. First current year depreciation, then brought forward losses, if you remember, and then brought forward depreciation, and then self-assessed taxes and other dues, any other amount which is payable under the act, including your demand. So the first priority, second priority, and third priority. So the interest will be calculated similarly. So we'll pay 4,000 rupees. First we'll assume CS executive fees is gone. Now 1,000 is left. Fine. So remember this, a small question can be asked. Every person who has paid the tax on goods or services or both under this act shall, unless the contrary is proved by him, be deemed to have been passed on the full incidence of such tax to the recipient of such goods or services or both. Baba SG purchased certain goods. He purchased goods for 10,000 plus GST. Now, have I paid GST? Yes. So, unless the contrary is proved by me, we will assume that he has passed on the incident, because GST it keeps on shifting. The liability was on this was Mr. X. He shifted the liability on Mr. SG. Now Mr. SG has sold it to Mr. Y. So the liability is now on Y. The incidence is on Mr. Y. So we'll assume Mr. Y even have further sold it, or Mr. Y tells, no, I'm a consumer. So the liability is on me. So generally it says, what does it say? Every person who has paid the tax on goods or services or both under this act, in this case SG has paid, shall, unless the contrary, unless SG proves, be deemed to have passed on the full incidence of such tax. We assume that you have passed on the liability to Mr. Y. This is used for the purpose of refund. When refunds are claimed, then I have to show I didn't transfer the goods to other person, the burden is on my head, please you give me the refund. Otherwise, there is a law called law of unjust enrichment. Law of unjust enrichment. We cannot make you rich for other person's money. So we assume that you have passed on the incidents to the other person. So why should we give you the refund? You tell, no, the amount is mine, I haven't sold the goods. So the point I'm trying to say is, if I lent some money to other person and the money goes bad debt, we assume that you had that money and loss is suffered by you. Because law of unjust enrichment says we cannot make you rich, we cannot give you the refund unless you show that you have felt the pain. This is the point. So we assume that you must have passed on the pain to other person. We are not honest enough to keep the pain. So this is an assumption, just like in criminal law. There is a assumption of mens rea. Mens rea means guilty mind. If a person is found to be committing a murder, government need not prove, yes, he has committed the murder. You know this. It will be assumed that he had the guilty mind. His advocates or his vakil will say, no, it was not his intention. So similarly, guys, the law of unjust enrichment says other person's money we cannot make you rich. So if there is an assumption that if the incidence of tax must have shifted by you, you say no, I didn't shift the incidence of the tax, and you have documentary evidence to show that, then we will give you the refund and all. This will be used later on in the chapter of refund. For the purpose of this section 49, date of credit to the account of government in the authorized bank shall be deemed to be the date of deposit in the electronic cash ledger. Date of credit to the account of the government in the authorized bank shall be deemed to be the date of deposit in the electronic credit cash ledger. So once you deposit money in the electronic cash ledger, date of credit to the account of the government. Achha, when the money is credited to the account of the government, date of credit to the account of the government in the authorized bank shall be deemed to be the date of deposit in the electronic, shall be assumed to be the date of deposit. Achha, once you deposit money in the electronic cash ledger, it will be deemed, what should I say, like the date of credit to the account of the government in the authorized bank shall be deemed to be the date of deposit in the electronic cash ledger. What is the purpose of this? So date of credit to the account of the government in the authorized bank shall be deemed to be the date of, once you deposit money in the electronic cash ledger, that will be the date of credit to the account of the government. So it's not making sense to me.
Are you getting some sense?
Sir, it making sense in the sense that nowadays all are online payment. So instantly it is happening. Once you make the payment, that day only the deposit to the government account.
Now, if you deposit in the cash ledger, so that will be deemed as credit to the government. That will be deemed as credit to the government.
Sir,
If a date of credit to the account of the government in the authorized bank shall be assumed, इसको ऐसा easy करते हैं, डेट ऑफ क्रेडिट जब गवर्नमेंट के खाते में पैसा जमा हुआ वो एज्यूम कर लिया जाएगा द डेट ऑफ डिपॉजिट इन द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर. अच्छा, क्रेडिट टू द अकाउंट ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. अच्छा, समझ आ गई, बात आ गई.
जब गवर्नमेंट के अकाउंट में वो पैसा पहुंचेगा तो हम ये मानेंगे कि आपके कैश लेजर में पैसा जमा हुआ. गवर्नमेंट जैसे क्या होता है ना, कभी कभार मान लीजिए एनईएफटी ट्रांजैक्शन करी, हाँ एनईएफटी ट्रांजैक्शन करी 18/6/2020 को, बट ये एनईएफटी ट्रांजैक्शन रिफ्लेक्ट हुई हाँ 19/6/2020 को. तो आपने कर तो दी थी, आपके तो डेबिट हो गया था बैंक से, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट के क्रेडिट हुआ है क्योंकि ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर एक तरीके से गवर्नमेंट के पास मेंटेन हो रहा है ना, तो गवर्नमेंट का क्रेडिट हुआ है 19/6 को, तो ये माना जाएगा डेट ऑफ डिपॉजिट. बताओ आपके अकाउंट आपके कैश लेजर में कब हुआ, डेट ऑफ डिपॉजिट.
कैश लेजर क्या माना जाएगा, डेट ऑफ डिपॉजिट इन कैश लेजर. आपने कैश लेजर में कब जमा, 90. देखो जी,
तो कोई चीजें थोड़ी समझ के पढ़ा करो. डेट ऑफ क्रेडिट टू द अकाउंट ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट, जब गवर्नमेंट के पास क्रेडिट हुआ हम उस दिन को मानेंगे कि आपने कैश लेजर में पैसा जमा करवाया, बात खत्म. एंड टैक्स ड्यू मींस टैक्स पेबल अंडर दिस एक्ट बट डज नॉट इंक्लूड इंटरेस्ट फी एंड पेनल्टी. टैक्स ऑब्वियसली टैक्स का मतलब प्योर टैक्स, इंटरेस्ट फी पेनल्टी नहीं आएगा. अदर ड्यूज में आ जाएगा इंटरेस्ट पेनल्टी एंड फीस. तो अदर ड्यूज कहां पर आ गया था वर्ड, जरा देख लें ये सेक्शन अदर ड्यूज. देखो 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 आराम आराम से देखो, अदर ड्यूज कहां पर आया था वर्ड.
देखो यहां पर आया होगा. ढूंढो ना नलायको, ढूंढो. 49(3). हाँ, मतलब कहीं ना कहीं टैक्स पेबल
means the pure taxes and any other amount due includes interest penalties. Fine, I think we should not go and understand in deep everything. चलो जी, ये बात समझ आ गई. ये आ गया जी 49A 49B. This is all order of utilization which we have done earlier in the first class. Now interest on delayed payment of taxes, rate of interest. Every person who is liable to pay tax in accordance with the provision of this act or rules made thereunder but fails to pay the tax or any part thereof to the government within the period prescribed, that is the period for each one. जैसे for quarterly it is for the composition scheme, monthly is for the normal dealers. In fact, shall for the period for which the tax remains unpaid pay on his own interest at such rate, you don't wait for the government notice, not exceeding, government has notified 18%. Government has notified 18%. In income tax it is 12%, 1% per month. If you remember, advance tax, self-assessment tax, it is 12%. So it is 18%, and calculation shall be done from the day succeeding the day on which taxes need to be paid for the 20th of next month, from the 21st and till the date of payment. Till the date of payment. So guys, listen to me. In October 20, my output tax was 40,000. My input tax credit was 30,000. Payable amount was 10,000. I need to pay till, yes, 20th November 20. Guys, but I paid on 30th November 20. On what amount I shall pay interest? First thing, on the gross amount or on the net amount? And secondly, yes guys, what is the amount of interest I need to pay? Two things you have to tell me.
October 20 liability, I need to pay by the 20th of November.
But I didn't pay on the 20th of November. I paid on the 30th of November. First,
Tell me, is it the interest to be payable on the gross amount or on the net amount? Net amount. Earlier it was the gross amount, so there was some. We have to pay 10% into 18
upon 100 into 10 days. 21st से count करेंगे. 21st of 11 20 to 30th 11 20 divided by 365. हाँ जी. So this will be the amount of interest. Can you calculate for me the exact amount? Can you calculate for me the exact amount?
Please calculate for me the exact amount. 49 rupees. 49.31. So rounded off rupees 49. Great. So
We have to pay. Now, any taxable person who makes undue or excess claim of credit under 4210, we need to, or undue or excess reduction in the output tax liability 4310, we'll study this, shall pay interest on such excess claim at the rate government has notified 24%. So when you are liable to pay, yes, the taxable person, undue or excess claim of input tax, you have claimed excess, yes, then you need to give it back, or undue or excess reduction in the output tax liability 4210 and 4310. So we need to go to the, so मैंने ना ये open कर ली है CGST Act. I have opened it. 4210 guys, 4210. Here 42 subsection 10. See, are you able to see
the amount
reduced from output tax liability in contravention, you reduce your output tax in contravention of the provision of subsection 7 shall be added to the output tax liability of the recipient in his return for the month in which contravention takes place. See, and the recipient shall be liable to pay interest on the amount so added at the rate specified in subsection 3 of 53. Subsection 353, which we just done now. So see, 53 has a link to 4310 and 4310 says contravention under subsection 7. So let's do, what did you do wrong? 7. The recipient shall be eligible to reduce from output tax liability the amount added under subsection 5 if the supplier declares the details of the invoices or the debit note in the valid return within time specified. So you know debit note has been issued. Yes, because of sales return and all, because you deposit more GST to the government, then you have to reflect your deposit debit note and you can reduce your output tax liability. In contravention, yani ki you debit note was of 10,000 rupees, you know, you made a, are you people getting what I'm saying?
अच्छा मैं दोबारा हिंदी में समझाता हूँ
फॉर योर काइंड इंटेंशन. देखो जी क्या होता है, आपने यू मेड अ सेल ऑफ रुपीज 2 lakhs एंड देन later on your accountant told Gupta ji the sale should be for only 150. So you charged more GST on 50,000. Now what will you do? I will tell my client, please reverse the credit on 50,000. He will reverse the credit. I will pay him 50,000. But the government has the money na. So now if I have a sale of 3 lakhs, I'll reduce my output tax and make sale at 250, so that the 50,000 on excess amount I've paid GST to the government is adjusted. But by reduce my output tax in contravention of 7, that means I should have reduced my sales. देखो क्या होता है, I'll take you an example. चलो एग्जाम्पल ही लेते हैं. देखिए जी, I made a sale of 2 lakhs and charge GST at the rate of 18%. Later on I came to know the sale should be only upon 1.5 lakhs and GST should be 18%. तो पहला काम, I will issue a debit note. I will refund. Yes, I will refund 50,000. Refund 50,000 to the client. Client will reverse. ITC on rupees 50,000. He has taken excess, and the government also has the amount which is excess. So what will I do is, I will reduce output tax. जब पता चलेगा अब किस में, by rupees 50,000. Reduce output tax कह लीजिए, my sales, reduce my sales by 50,000. So now, but I reduced my sales by 70,000. This has to be. तो जिस महीने डेबिट नोट इशू किया गया, अब पढ़ना जरा इसको, तब समझ आएगा. The recipient shall be eligible to reduce from output tax liability, or you can say 50,000 18%. 50,000 18% is 9,000 rupees. So I should reduce my output tax by 9,000 rupees. If my output tax is 40,000, I will pay them 31. So the recipient shall be eligible to reduce from the output tax liability the amount added under subsection 5 if the supplier declares the details of the invoice or debit note in valid return. Let's now go in two details. इतना एक एक चीज को अंदर जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. कॉन्सेप्ट को पकड़ो कि आपने अपना आउटपुट, लेकिन आपने आउटपुट टैक्स ज्यादा रिड्यूस कर लिया. 9,000 की जगह reduce by 90,000. So you have to pay back. Yes. See now what the section 10 says. Amount reduced from the output tax in contravention of the provision of section 7 shall be added to the output tax liability of the recipient in his return for the month in which contravention takes place, and the recipient shall be liable to pay interest on the amount so added at the rate of 50%. तो अगर आपने आउटपुट टैक्स अपना ज्यादा रिड्यूस कर लिया है इन कॉन्ट्रावेंशन, देन यू नीड टू पे इंटरेस्ट एट द रेट ऑफ 24%. So don't go into the nitty-gritties. Try. And what is 4310 says? 4310 says there are two contravention, 4210 and 4310. Amount reduced. And now there again subsection 7. Now what is this subsection 7? The supplier shall be eligible to reduce from. अच्छा वहां पर हमने डेबिट नोट इशू कर दिया ना. आई थिंक वी शुड
वहां पर हमने एक्सेस अमाउंट था, आई थिंक थोड़ी गड़बड़ी हो गई. हमने यहाँ पर जो यहाँ पर हमने क्रेडिट नोट इशू करना चाहिए था. हमने डेबिट नोट वर्ड दे दिया ना, क्योंकि हमने क्रेडिट नोट इशू करना चाहिए था. क्रेडिट नोट से मैं अपनी आउटपुट टैक्स कम करूंगा ना. एक गलती हो गई थोड़ी सी. एक सेकेंड दोबारा से रिपीट करते हैं. यहाँ पर हमने क्रेडिट नोट इशू करेंगे हम, और फिर मैं अपनी आउटपुट टैक्स. तो ये सेक्शन 4310 है, ये सेक्शन 4310 है जो हमने अभी पढ़ना है. और यहाँ पर हमने डेबिट नोट की बात करी है, तो वी हैव टू आस्क मोर टैक्स. तो थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन है, इसको दोबारा से ठीक करते हैं. रुको जी
दोबारा से ठीक करते हैं. लेट्स मेक अ चार्ट. देखिए चार्ट इज द ओनली वे ऑफ रिमूविंग कंफ्यूजन. लेट्स कम. सो प्लीज कंबाइन सेक्शन 4210, 4310 and section 50 subsection 3. Let's combine all the three so that there is no confusion. तो एक बार सेक्शन नंबर चेक कर लें. 4210, 4310 and section 53. And what does 53 says? Undue or excess claim. हाँ पढ़ो जरा. Undue or excess claim of input tax under 4210. Undue or excess claim under 4210. Just a second, guys. So let us start. Undue or excess claim of input tax. You know, theoretical ना, जब तक उसको you don't make a chart, so sometimes we also end up in messing the things. So undue or excess claim of input tax. Yes. Now secondly it says, my dear friends, or undue excess reduction in the output tax. Now I'm getting it. So undue or excess reduction, both case government is losing. Undue excess reduction in the output tax. This is under section 4210 and this is under 4310. This happens when debit note is issued and the recipient to whom debit note is issued takes more credit. The debit note was for rupees 1 lakh because the valuation you showed was less. You know, the original invoice, now it is clear. That's the reason I try to make charts, so to make you understand. But only theory don't understand. Original invoice was 1 lakh and the new value is rupees 2 lakhs. So I issue him a debit note of 1 lakh and say on this basis, yes, plus 18%. Now he will be able to claim the credit. Who will be able to claim the credit? The recipient. The recipient, that's the word recipient was there. Recipient will be able to claim ITC. You know, as per section 16, either you should have the invoice or you should have the debit note. But what does he do is, he claims excessive ITC. Then he has to pay back, along with interest at the rate of 24% per annum. This is the point. And this is 4210, contravention of 42.7. And here the deduction in output tax is, I have issued a credit note by original invoice, my dear friends, was 2 lakhs. And the new value came out to be only 150. So I'll issue a credit note of 50,000 plus 18% GST. Now I'll refund 50,000. I'll tell the recipient, please claim the reverse your ITC, and I will reduce my output tax. Here the supplier will reduce output tax. But excessive reduction has taken place. Excessive reduction of output tax. That I've learned, you know, since after my CA days, to be logical. When you understand any law, even if you misinterpret it, but you try to be logical. So excess reduction of output tax, then I need to pay it back. This is 4310. Then the payback along with interest at the rate of 24% per annum. प्लीज ये कॉपी कर लीजिए.
और ये कौन से महीने से,
ये भी बताऊंगा मैं भी आपको, कौन से महीने से कौन से महीने तक का ब्याज लगेगा. आइए जरा ये कॉपी कर लीजिएगा एंड से यस इफ यू
कॉपी डेट.
सर थोड़ा नीचे कीजिए ना, ऊपर का नहीं दिख रहा है.
चलिए जी लीजिए. Example is here, original invoice, new value, debit note, original invoice, new value, credit note, here debit note. Here the recipient, that was the word, recipient will be able to claim ITC under 16. He should have claimed normally, but he claimed excessive ITC. Then he has to pay along with the interest of 24%. He has to add to his output tax. When will he add? That is again given in the law. I tell you with a practical example. Excess reduction have taken place, payback along with interest at 24% per annum. आइए जरा वापस चलते हैं. ये हो गया, कॉपी कर लिया.
पहले बताओ, हैव यू कॉपीड इट और नॉट?
Yes, sir.
चलो ग्रेट. नाउ कम बैक.
This is clear. Added to the output tax liability of the recipient in the return for the month contravention takes place. Contravention takes place. तो बाबा जिस महीने कॉन्ट्रावेंशन हुआ है उस महीने के आउटपुट टैक्स में ऐड हो जाएगा. सो एक्सेसिव, ये एक्सेसिव किया है फॉर द मंथ ऑफ नवंबर 2020. So it should be payable by 20th December 20. But you paid, but November 20 excessive claim, but actual payment you did on 28th December 20. And excessive claim is, you should have claimed a credit of 18,000, but you claimed a credit of 18,000 you should have claimed. 18,000, instead of 18,000 you claimed 50,000. This was due, this was actual. So on what amount you need to pay interest, guys? 32,000 into 24 upon 100 into 8 upon 365. This will be the, because your due was 18,000, you should have claimed credit of 18. You claimed credit of 50. Actual credit you claimed. So you're cheating the government that your output tax liability will be increased for the month of November. 32,000, 18 and 32, and 24% interest for 8 days you will be levied. Have you understood it now?
समझ आया नहीं आया?
Yes, sir.
चलो अब आओ
दूसरे केस में, उसमें 4310 वाले केस में. 43 वाले 10 में आपने क्रेडिट नोट में आउटपुट टैक्स रिड्यूस करना है और आपने ज्यादा रिड्यूस कर लिया, तो वो करेक्शन कब करनी है? एडिट contravention takes place. Output tax liability of the supplier in the return for the month contravention takes place. So guys, मुझे अगेन वही वाला लॉजिक, सेम लॉजिक, आउटपुट टैक्स रिड्यूस करना था. जब ये क्रेडिट नोट जिस महीने इशू हुआ होगा तो रिड्यूस आउटपुट टैक्स यहां से, फिर वही सेम एग्जांपल, कॉन्ट्रावेंशन टेक्स प्लेस, contravention in December 2020. So what should I have done is, कितना contravention हुआ? आपने रिड्यूस करना था टैक्स अपना, आपने रिड्यूस करना था टैक्स 50,000 का 9,000 रुपए से. You should have reduced your tax by 9,000, but you reduced by 29,000. So excess 20,000 you have to pay, excess 20,000 you have to pay by 20th January 21. Pay, but paid on, yes guys, but paid on 30th January 21. So 10,000, 20,000 excess amount, 24 upon 100 into 10 by 365. So in contravention took place in December 20, you should have reduced by 9,000 your output tax, but you reduced by 29, excess is 20, and pay by 20th January, but paid on 30th January, then 20,024 divided by 100 into 10 by 365. This is the amount of interest you need to pay. तो normal tax की कमी है, pay 18%. Excessive आउटपुट टैक्स कम कर लिया क्रेडिट नोट के कारण, या एक्सेसिव आईटीसी ले लिया डेबिट नोट के कारण रेसिपिएंट ने, तो जिस महीने से कॉन्ट्रावेंशन हुआ है उस महीने की आउटपुट टैक्स में ऐड करना चाहिए, और जब तक आप पे नहीं करोगे 24% का ब्याज चलेगा. आई थिंक अब क्लियर हो गया होगा बात.
Yes, sir.
चलो तो देखो मैंने भी कुछ
प्लान नहीं किया था ऐसा चार्ट बनाना. दिस कम्स ऑटोमेटिकली व्हेन यू स्टार्ट ओपनिंग योर माइंड एंड थिंग्स विल कम टू यू. खुद तो आप कर ही नहीं, समझ ही नहीं पाते. अब ये क्या रूल्स में दिया हुआ है, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर इस फॉर्म में मेंटेन होता है. ये फॉर्म नंबर याद रख लेना, फॉर्म PMT01. योर लायबिलिटी रजिस्टर इज मेंटेन इन दिस फॉर्म. कभी शॉर्ट नोट आ सकता है. हाँ जी, बाकी तो रूल्स मत पढ़ो यार. क्रेडिट लेजर इज मेंटेन इन GST PMT02. GST PMT02. हाँ, आप अपनी नॉलेज के लिए पढ़ सकते हैं ये सब चीज़ें, बट आई डोंट रिकमेंड. और मुझे लगेगा वो मिसलेनियस क्लास करेंगे उसमें बता दूंगा, लेकिन अभी नहीं. अच्छा, और आपका कैश लेजर GST PMT05. GST PMT05. आइए ज़रा, तो बस ये आपके रूल्स हैं, इसमें ज़्यादा डीप में जाने के आई डोंट थिंक इज रिक्वायर्ड. इतना ही कर लो. पहले वो obviously they are going to ask question from the section. They are not concentrating on the rules. People don't know what is there in the section, and they will not ask you about the rules. So my firm understanding is very clear. First they are going to ask about the sections, and I don't think people even know this 4210 and 4310. Nobody knows it. I'm telling you, if question comes, only who have studied they will know. So now this chapter is over, guys, and